Hi there. So let's continue our exploration of Matthew. We're on chapter 15. I just did a short video and uploaded it on why I'm doing this whole Through the Bible series out loud. You might give it a listen. It tells you why I'm doing this. So let's jump over here and we'll get right into it. Jesus teaches about inner purity. Some Pharisees and teachers of religious law now arrived from Jerusalem to see Jesus. They asked him, "Why do your disciples disobey our age-old tradition? For they ignore our tradition of ceremonial hand-washing before they eat." Jesus replied, "And why do you, by your tradition, violate the direct commandments of God? For instance, God says, 'Honor your father and mother.' And anyone who speaks disrespectfully of father or mother must be put to death. But you say it is all right for people to say to their parents, 'Sorry, I can't help you, for I have vowed to give to God what I would have given to you.' In this way you say they don't need to honor their parents. And so you cancel the word of God for the sake of your own tradition. You hypocrites." He said that a lot. Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you, for he wrote, "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Their worship is a farce." Wow. "For they teach man-made ideas as commands from God." This goes on a lot today. Right? So the Pharisees and teachers of religious law are still around today in many different forms. Then Jesus called to the crowds to come and hear. "Listen," he said, "and try to understand. It's not what goes into your mouth that defiles you. You are defiled by the words that come out of your mouth." There you go. Then the disciples came to him and asked, "Do you realize you offended the Pharisees by what you just said?" I think he did. Jesus replied, "Every plant not planted by my heavenly Father will be uprooted. So ignore them. They are blind guides leading the blind. And if one blind person guides another, they will both fall into a ditch." Then Peter said to Jesus, "Explain to us the parable that says people aren't defiled by what they eat." "Don't you understand yet?" Jesus asked. "Anything you eat passes through the stomach and then goes into the sewer. But the words you speak come from the heart. That's what defiles you. From the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, all sexual immorality, theft, lying, and slander. They are what defile you. Eating with unwashed hands will never defile you." Don't let your kids see this, okay? "But Mom, it says in Matthew 15:20 that we don't have to wash our hands." Then Jesus left Galilee and went north to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Gentile woman who lived there came to him, pleading, "Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David, for my daughter is possessed by a demon that torments her severely." But Jesus gave her no reply, not even a word. Then his disciples urged him to send her away. "Tell her to go away," they said. "She is bothering us with all her begging." Then Jesus said to the woman, "I was sent only to help God's lost sheep, the people of Israel." But she came and worshipped him, pleading again, "Lord, help me." Jesus responded, "It isn't right to take food from the children and throw it to the dogs." Wow. She replied, "That's true, Lord, but even dogs are allowed to eat the scraps that fall beneath their master's table." "Dear woman," Jesus said to her, "your faith is great. Your request is granted." And her daughter was instantly healed. Wow. Jesus heals many people. Jesus returned to the Sea of Galilee and climbed on a hill and sat down. A vast crowd brought to him people who were lame, blind, crippled, and those who couldn't speak, and many others. They led them before Jesus, and he healed them all. The crowd was amazed. Those who hadn't been able to speak were talking. The crippled were made well, and the lame were walking, and the blind could see again. And they praised the God of Israel. Jesus feeds 4,000. Then Jesus called his disciples and told them, "I feel sorry for these people. They've been here with me for 3 days, and they have nothing left to eat. I don't want to send them away hungry, or they will faint along the way." Then the disciples replied, "Where would we get enough food here in the wilderness to feed such a huge crowd?" Jesus says, "How much bread do you have?" They replied, 7 loaves and a few small fish. So Jesus told the people to sit down on the ground. Then he took the 7 loaves and the fish, thanked God for them, and broke them into pieces. He gave them to the disciples, who distributed food to the crowd. They all ate as much as they wanted afterward. Afterward, the disciples picked up 7 large baskets of leftover food. There were 4,000 men who were fed that day, in addition to all the women and children. That's not mentioned enough to me. Then Jesus sent the people home, and he got into a boat and crossed over to the region of Magadan. Now he's fed the 5,000, now he's fed 4,000 again. Matthew 16. Leaders demand a miraculous sign. Big mistake. One day the Pharisees and Sadducees. Now the Sadducees did not believe in the resurrection. They didn't believe there was life after death, and that all you had was the life on earth. They were Sadducee. I learned that in Sunday school when I was a kid, so don't laugh at me. One day the Pharisees and Sadducees came to Jesus, demanding that he show them a miraculous sign from heaven to prove his authority. He replied, "You know the saying, red sky at night means fair weather tomorrow. Red sky in the morning means foul weather all day." You know how to interpret the weather signs in the sky, but you don't know how to interpret the signs of the times. Only an evil, adulterous generation would demand a miraculous sign. But the only sign I will give them is the sign of the prophet Jonah. Then Jesus left them and went away. Yeast of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Later, after they crossed to the other side of the lake, the disciples discovered they had forgotten to bring any bread. "Watch out," Jesus warned them, "beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees." At this, they began to argue with each other because they hadn't brought any bread. Jesus knew what they were saying, so he said, "You have so little faith. Why are you arguing with each other about having no bread? Don't you understand even yet? Don't you remember the 5,000 I fed with 5 loaves and the baskets of leftovers you picked up? Or the 4,000 I fed with 7 loaves and the large baskets of leftovers you picked up? Why can't you understand that I'm not talking about bread? So again I say, beware of the yeast of the Sadducees." You know, a little yeast will rise a whole batch of dough, and a little poison will poison a whole batch of something. You know, just a little side note, I knew a pastor once who was also a pest control person. That's what he did during the day. And he told me, "Did you know rat poison is 99% nutritious, wholesome food and 1% poison? And it only takes the 1% to kill the rat." There you go. Beware of the yeast of the Sadducees. Then at last they understood that he wasn't speaking about the yeast in bread, but about the deceptive teaching of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Peter's declaration about Jesus. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" "Well," they replied, "some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, and others say Jeremiah or one of the other prophets." Then he asked them, "But who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "You are blessed, Simon, son of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. You did not learn this from any human being. Now I say to you that you are Peter," which means rock, "and upon this rock I will build my church." Peter. "And all the powers of hell will not conquer it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you forbid on earth will be forbidden in heaven, and whatever you permit on earth will be permitted in heaven." Then he sternly warned the disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. Jesus predicts his death. From then on, Jesus began to tell his disciples plainly that it was necessary for him to go to Jerusalem, and that he would suffer many terrible things at the hands of the elders, the leading priests, and the teachers of religious law. He would be killed, but on the 3rd day he would be raised from the dead. You know, they didn't believe him. Peter took him aside and began to reprimand him. That's got to be funny. For saying such things. "Heaven forbid, Lord," he said, "this will never happen to you." Jesus turned turned to Peter and said, "Get away from me, Satan." That's the same person who just said that the church would be founded on him. You're a dangerous trap to me. You are seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God's. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "If any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way. Take up your cross and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it." Good stuff right there. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? For the Son of Man will come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and will judge all people according to their deeds. And I tell you the truth, some standing here right now will not die before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. And we never really knew what that meant. But that was 15 and 16. We'll go over the highlighted stuff. 16:24. If any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. And beware of the yeast of the Sadducees. It only takes a little lie, one untruth, to ruin a whole story. We fed 4,000, in addition to all the women and children, which usually makes it probably closer to 10,000. Yeah. And the verse for the kids: eating with unwashed hands will never defile you. I wish I'd have known this when I was little. Of course, my mom probably would have knocked me down, but I always washed my hands before I ate dinner, or they wouldn't let you eat dinner. So that's honoring your father and mother. 15:11. It's not what goes into your mouth that defiles you. You are defiled by the words that come out of your mouth. So anything you eat's not going to defile you. It's the stuff you say. What he says about the Pharisees and the teachers of religious law: their worship is a farce, for they teach man-made ideas as commands from God. Now, there's been people in lately, and in the last century specifically, in the 20th century, that I've got a new word from God, and he has a new law, and he gave me this new book. No, he didn't. You hypocrites. I highlight every time he calls somebody a name. And once again, Jesus says, don't be afraid. Take courage, I am here. Love it. That's when Peter was walking on the water. That was yesterday. So, that's 15 and 16. We will continue with more tomorrow. I'm not sure. Let's see how many. Let's go see. I'm curious. There's 28 chapters, so, and we did 15 and 16, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12 left. So probably 4 to 6 more days, and we'll be finished. But give a listen to the other video that I made about why I'm doing these. It's kind of interesting. Until next time, keep reading. Read out loud. Reading out loud is very beneficial. And it's why I'm doing this whole series, because I want to read the entire New Testament out loud. So, keep praying. Keep talking to the Spirit. Ask Him for the words, and He'll give it to you. See you next time.